in a first half dominated by Green Bay. Packers 21, Bears 3.
We don't like that score at halftime. Nobody does. And yet this is a great opportunity for us to turn this thing around into a game that we'll never forget. And that's what they did.
And it is 27-24. Got to go down and score again.
The only option we had was to win the effing game.
Caleb with a throw down the left sideline. Touchdown. Bears now have a 4-point lead.
The season on the line. Looking around, still looking. He throws left side of the end zone.
Game is over. Game is over. The Bears are going to the divisional round, baby.
The Bears under Ben Johnson had a season that would knock your shirt off. Chicago more than doubled their win total from 2024, won the NFC North, and secured their first playoff victory in 15 years. But is Chicago ready for a Super Bowl leap? History says the Bears are due. The Eagles and Seahawks lost in 05 and 06, but both won 20 years later. Chicago lost in 07, and right they are 25-1 to win the Lombardi. All right, joining us now is a man behind the machine, Bears head coach Ben Johnson with us. And Ben, thank you so much for joining us here on SportsCenter. You said during your end of season presser, the Bears are going back to square one. You were just in that spot a year ago as a new head coach. What can you lean on going into year two that you learned from year one?
Well, I think we know our roster a lot better than what we did a year ago. You know, we got a lot of continuity here on the coaching staff. We feel very strongly about the guys that are coming back. We got to bring the competition back to our 90-man roster, though. That's going to be the biggest thing, you know, that Ryan and I are looking to do is how do we get a better version of this team for 2026? Because as close as we were, we still fell short. And so we got to go back to the drawing board, and we got to build on from those experiences that were good, and yet we still got a lot of work to do.
And Caleb Williams had an incredible sophomore leap, and he's targeting the 2013 Broncos offensive records as some of his own goals for next season. What do you hope Caleb's next strides are leading this offense?
Well, he's done a phenomenal job just picking up the coaching, and there's a lot of new that came in. He just hadn't played a lot of ball in this league yet, and yet he is a phenomenal football player, and he can do some things on his own. And so we just got to get him to play in structure just a tad bit more. I think he's going to be light years better just understanding what we're trying to get done, and I'm really looking forward to going into year two with him.
And last offseason, improving the offensive line to keep Caleb Williams upright was a priority, and that happened this past season. What's the biggest area that you guys want to improve on this team going into this offseason?
Yeah, no, I was pretty pleased with how we got better in terms of the offensive line. Both our rushing attack and our sack numbers went down, and so felt really good in that regard. But I think defensively we got to make some strides. We weren't quite good enough as a whole. We did a great job taking the ball away, but there's a number of areas that we can get better there. And yet it's still on offense. I do believe we're just scratching the surface of what we're capable of doing as well.
Let's talk about the relationship between you and your quarterback. Caleb says your relationship with him went from fragile to unbreakable because of those one-on-one meetings that you guys have had throughout the season. What do you appreciate most about being on this journey together with your quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, he and I are wired the same way, and you don't know that until you spend time with somebody. And so he knows I want what's best for him. We both desperately want to win games. We both desperately want to win for this city. We both want to bring a Super Bowl trophy here to Chicago. And so when you have like-minded goals like that, I think you know, you really can come together and do some special things. I'm really excited about what the future has in store for him.
And Caleb Williams showed that he's one of the ones when it comes to competitiveness out there on the field, but he thinks you truly bring the fire to Hallis Hall. Take a look.
I was like, yo, he's like us. Like he wants to whoop everybody's ass.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's like a player in a sense because he's like he's out there. And obviously he knows he's not out there. He knows that he always tells me, he's like, you know, players make coaches, and you know, players are everything. You know, more than scheme, more than anything. And so I think, you know, he does a good job with like adapting to his players. But he is like a player. Like he wants to whoop everybody's ass.
Coach, you heard it right there from your quarterback. I mean, where does that fire come from?
Oh, no, that's how I'm wired. That's how I've always been. You know, you get in this league and you want to make an impact. You want to make a lasting legacy, if you will. And, I'm grateful to be around a lot of guys that want to do that here in Chicago. I can't say enough good things about this coaching staff. I can't say enough good things about the guys on the roster right now. I'm really looking forward to what's ahead.
Bears-Packers, we have to talk about it. It's a rivalry for the ages. What separates that rivalry from anything else that you've experienced as a coach?
Yeah, no, I think it's special. How close these two cities are. It's gone back for since the beginning of the NFL. It's such a major thing in this sport that it'd be a shame if we downplayed it at all. I think when both teams are good and we're competing against each other, I think it's a good thing for the sport.
And you delivered not only wins for Chicago this past season, but also free hot dogs thanks to your shirtless celebrations during the season. What did your wife, Jessica, and family say about you flexing for the fans out there?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep my shirt on here going forward.
You got to keep the shirt on. I don't know. I think everybody loves it. When you get fired up, you're in that locker room. All the juices are flowing. I mean, Coach, that's how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to be just as excited as your players in there. I don't think we do away with it at all.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Look, wifey must have said something about it. She's like, keep your shirt on. We don't need your shirt off in public. Ben Johnson joining us from Indy. Coach, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The NFL now, Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said he, quote, can't guarantee that A.J. Brown will be on the team's roster this upcoming season. Brown has been the subject of trade talks, and while Sirianni said he and Brown both want the talented receiver to remain in Philly, it's unclear how things will shake out. For more, here's Kimberly Martin with the Eagles head coach.
All right, so Nick, you've said that you want A.J. Brown on the team, great teammate, great player, but nothing's guaranteed. Can you envision this offense without him, though?
He has meant so much to our football team these past 4 years. And like I said, I've always said I've never hidden my relationship with him and the relationship that I have with him. And it's been awesome going to work with him, going to battle with him over these past 4 years. And, we're at a point that, we want to keep good players around. Like, it's not at a point. That's what they always want to keep good players around. And so always excited to have him on the football team and look forward to continuing that relationship. I know I want to continue that relationship. I know he wants to continue that relationship, and excited about that.
Now, you had a pretty extensive search for an offensive coordinator. What in the end led you to Sean Mannion, and what do you envision his vision being for your offense?
Yeah, long process to go through everything. Make sure you're casting a wide net, and we were able to do that. And and it just throughout the process, he revealed himself that he was the guy, and really excited about him. They've done so many good things in Green Bay. He's done so many good things in his career amongst different coaches. We've been able to do a lot of good things with our offense in the past 5 years here. And looking forward to being able to mesh things together, but really, Sean leading the way and taking control of things. I'm excited for his opportunity. It was very obvious of how good of a football coach he is, and it's been very obvious every single day that he's been in the building. So excited about this partnership.
Again, Louis Riddick, they're not going to come out and say negative things about one another because that's bad for business. So ultimately, where do you see this thing headed this offseason between the Eagles and A.J. Brown?
Yeah, it's amazing, what Nick wouldn't say, right? I mean, obviously he's going to, pump up the player, and rightfully so. Look, A.J. Brown is a dynamic, true bona fide number one. Outside lane, X or Z receiver who, when the team knows they're going to him, you can still throw it to him and he's still going to win. But see, the game, in the NFL is not just about collecting talent. It's about building teams. It's about maintaining team chemistry. It's about maintaining a culture. And right now, something's off there. It's just a fact. And see, we don't like talking about culture until your team underperforms. Then it's like, well, they didn't pay enough attention to the culture. It's like, well, you know what? Sometimes getting the right culture in place involves maybe moving on from someone who you would typically surround. You would typically have a conversation that involves you saying, we're not in the business of getting rid of good players. A.J. Brown may find himself in that situation where it just doesn't work anymore. And there's a lot of teams out there right now that would love to have his services.
Yeah, we talked about it on Get Up last week. Maybe the Buffalo Bills, who could use a bona fide star for a bona fide quarterback, and Josh Allen would be a great suitor. Speaking of receivers, yesterday the Cowboys declared their intentions to use the franchise tag on wide receiver George Pickens. We know it's good for the franchise. They get the guy locked up 1 year on $28 million. Do you believe that Pickens should play on that tag this upcoming season?
I mean, that wouldn't be what I would advise him to do. I mean, obviously, I would be advising him to go ahead and secure the kind of guaranteed money that comes along with being a true bona fide, or looked at as a true bona fide number one wide receiver, which his statistics this year, having the career year that he did, shows that he is. That's the fact. But the problem is you already have one receiver who's well north of 30 plus per year in CeeDee Lamb. And George is going to want that as well. And no team has that kind of money allocated to the wide receiver position in the number one and number two. So this is going to be a tough negotiation because George is going to want to secure his long-term financial future. Dallas is going to sit there and go, well, we don't know if we can necessarily, we think it's in our best interest to go ahead and put that kind of money into that position. And George is going to say, hey, look, that isn't my problem. It isn't my problem to manage the salary cap for you. I want what the market says I should get. And the market says he should get north of $30 million per year, Matt. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's just whether or not they're able to arrive at that conclusion on a long-term deal, or he has to play out this year and then hit the market again in 2027.
And you wonder if that will become a problem for the Cowboys if the player becomes a problem with that deal. But a whole offseason to discuss. Right. Louis Riddick. Louis, thank you.
The Browns QB carousel kept turning this past season. The Browns have 3 quarterbacks in the mix to be QB1 next year. Shedeur Sanders finished the year as a team starter, and fellow rookie Dylan Gabriel started another 6 games. Re-entering the conversation is Deshaun Watson, who's coming back from a torn Achilles. Here's the GM Andrew Berry on Shedeur and whether or not he might start.
Number one, probably a better question for Todd, tomorrow when he hits the podium. I think the biggest thing that we want to see from Shedeur is just continued growth. I think he grew a lot from start 1 to start 7. So the biggest thing that he can do is learn the new offense, get in with the coaching staff once our offseason program starts, continue to work on his body physically, and then make strides when we actually get on the grass.
Shedeur had lower totals than the other pair of starting QBs for the Browns, including 2 more interceptions and a higher off-target percentage. But Sanders did deliver 3 wins in his 7 starts, the most out of any QB in that trio.
Wholeheartedly. 1, I wish you were here. 2, I'm glad it was good enough to at least get into Bristol today, because I know you guys have been dealing with a lot out there. So again, live vicariously with me and through me for the next hour of SportsCenter.
Look, I'm definitely living through you vicariously. I had to go through a lot of snow to get here. But, while you're hanging out with celebrities and out there on the beach, the rest of us are really working, Matt, like Steelers GM Omar Khan, answering everyone's burning questions this afternoon. Will Aaron Rodgers be back in black and yellow come next season? His answer, it's new on SportsCenter.
The door's open to have Aaron back. I've had conversations with him. I spoke to him last week.
Between him and Mike McCarthy is one where they could still get another year out of him at a high level, just like they got last year with him, Mike Tomlin, and Arthur Smith, which I think they will be able to. I think obviously they need to continue to look at what Will Howard brings to the table at this point in his developmental process. And then obviously I think when you're talking about the draft, and I know you have Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson up there, but we're looking for a long-term solution at this position. And then I think Ty Simpson obviously is the guy who's right now in the wheelhouse for Pittsburgh, where they pick 21st in the first round potentially.
Yeah, we'll talk with Mel Kiper about that coming up in just a bit, because it is a fascinating situation. You can only Band-Aid with a veteran quarterback for so long. And Adam Schefter said this morning on the radio that people aren't ruling out the possibility of Rodgers going to the Vikings and signing with them because they want to create a competitive environment for J.J. McCarthy. So is that something, Louis, that you might think fit not only for Rodgers, but from the Vikings' perspective?
Yeah, actually I do. I mean, obviously there was a lot of smoke surrounding that situation a year ago. And I think this is something that really J.J. McCarthy in particular really would have no other choice but to embrace. And quite honestly, I think he should embrace it. I think there's a lot of question surrounding where he is at in his developmental process and whether or not he would benefit from having someone like an Aaron Rodgers to push him, quite honestly, to kind of sit back and learn from and then let the best man win. Look, if it winds up being a situation where JJ is still the guy who is, going to be their franchise quarterback going into the future, then those those cards will play out. I mean, obviously that wouldn't be something that Aaron would want, but I think this is definitely something they need to pursue, and they need to pursue vigorously this year, considering how quarterback and that whole situation unfolded for them a year ago.
Yeah, way too early to fold up on J.J. McCarthy. And by the way, if Rodgers did do this, he would pull the ultimate Brett Favre, hitting all 3 teams that he did, including the Packers, Jets, and Vikings. Switching gears now to a situation with another quarterback, Lamar Jackson, his opportunity to sign a long-term extension. Eric DeCosta, Ravens GM, spoke about that earlier today. It's new on SportsCenter.
As you guys know, Lamar and I have an agreement. We handle business kind of in-house internally, as you all know. That worked well for us the last time, and we will continue to have that policy moving forward. Have spoken to Lamar about a lot of different things over the last month. He's been very engaged. As I said, he was a big value to us in the coaching search, but we'll continue those conversations moving forward.
And, Lewis, it is a conversation they have to have. It's been a complete overhaul there in Baltimore for the first time in Lamar's career. So in your estimation, what is the most important thing for Lamar aside from contract with this new situation in Baltimore?
Yeah. It's all about, really nurturing the relationship between Jesse Minter, the head coach, Declan Doyle, the new offensive coordinator, and Israel Wolfork, his new quarterback coach. I mean, that's a lot of change for a guy who has won multiple MVPs, all while John Harbaugh was the one coaching him and kind of directing the ship down there as the head coach. I don't think there's any question as to who is the tip of the spear in that organization? Who is the guy that can really dictate, or let's just say at the very least influence the decision-making around there like Lamar Jackson can? And a lot of things happen down there based upon when he wants them to happen, how he wants them to happen. And this contract situation is going to be no different, especially considering the fact that he does his own deals. So, yeah, that relationship with Eric DeCosta is also going to be important because that $75 million cap number that he's going to carry over the next 2 years, the last 2 years of his deal, they're going to want to get that down. They're going to get that more palatable and then continue to go ahead and build out the rest of this roster. So it's all about relationships in Baltimore going forward.
And we remember last time Lamar did negotiate that deal by himself, so I'm glad you pointed it out because it took probably a little longer than a lot of people expected. Let's switch gears now to the defensive side of the ball. Max Crosby, his future with the Raiders has been in question since they put him on IR the final 2 games of the year. Crosby wasn't happy about it. We keep mentioning him as a destination guy for other teams. Their GM, John Spytek, spoke about that today and his future with the franchise.
Max is an elite player, and I've been very upfront from the start when I got here that we're in the business of having really good players on the team, and we need a lot more of them. And it's hard to build a great team without elite players.
Look, it's lion season. It's the draft, right? Everybody goes up there, smokescreen. They lie about what they're going to do. They're never going to tell you the truth without the media. But what do you think now of Crosby? Do you think he stays in Vegas, or is he too attractive of a prospect for people to kind of trade around for?
Look, first and foremost, let me say this. I've known John Spytek a long, long time. I was with him when we were both in Philadelphia. He's a good friend of mine, someone who I respect tremendously. He's right. You can't really get the ship turned without elite frontline players, especially playing premium positions like Max Crosby. That being said, look, John knows where his team is at as far as his program build. He knows it's devoid of talent. He knows he needs draft assets, and he needs a bunch of them, especially on the defensive side of the football. So you're always doing like a cost-benefit analysis, okay?
Yeah.
We know what the cost is of keeping Max. We know what it means if he's on our football team. We also know what the benefit could possibly be if he wasn't on our team in the way of draft picks and what that could do to help build out this roster. There's no way that he's not going to go out there right now probably and say, hey, look, of course he's on the market. Hey, somebody give us your best offers. Of course he's going to want people to think, of course, Max is a franchise player. But this is something they have to entertain. They have nobody on the defensive side of the ball other than Max that is a game changer. And you aren't going to win in the AFC West, and you aren't going to win in the AFC at all overall if you don't have more than just one guy, and they need to get as many as possible.
And sometimes it's identifying the fact that you absolutely need a reset with your franchise that gets the thing going. And we'll see. We saw with Dallas last year, Micah Parsons, a different situation that they didn't need to reset, but they got rid of a...
Back here on SportsCenter, there are a host of QBs with their futures in doubt. Starting with Miami, after 6 seasons, the Dolphins and quarterback Tua Tagovailoa could be headed for a breakup. Cutting him could force Miami to take as much as a $99 million dead cap hit. A trade of Tua might lead to the team to eat some of that nearly $60 million guaranteed to him over the next 2 seasons. First-year Miami GM John Eric Sullivan spoke about it today at the Combine. Take a listen. It's new on SportsCenter.
We're evaluating the entire roster, right? As it pertains to Tua, I know that question is coming, so I'll just get ahead of the curve. We've had conversations with Tua and his representation. Everything's on the table, including the potential of a trade. We don't know which way that's going to go. There's a lot of different factors at play, a lot of conversations being had.
Let's bring in our NFL insider, Phil Yates. And Tua Tagovailoa's tenure with the Dolphins could possibly come to an end. A lot of money to eat up with that contract there. However, where's the best landing spot for Tua?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm having a hard time finding a spot for Tua as a starter in 2026 in the NFL. Obviously, he had a very disappointing season this past year. The appeal for a team would be that Tua is going to be free if he is released by the Dolphins because of all the guaranteed money. Let's look at backup options, though. If I'm Tua, there might be a part of me after a difficult career or difficult finish to his career in Miami that is motivated to go to a place like the Los Angeles Rams to back up Matthew Stafford, where obviously he would only play if Stafford gets injured, but it's very good infrastructure. And we have seen quarterbacks go to places with the intention to be a backup and land on their feet a year later. Sam Darnold, of course, the most recent example when he went to San Francisco knowing he would not play behind Brock Purdy.
Yeah, definitely a weird situation with Tua and all that money that's coming.
A lot of money right there.
A lot of M's coming with him. Let's turn our attention to the NFC West. Kyler Murray's future has been in question as well. GM Monty Austinford spoke about it today.
Yeah, I've always had a good dialogue with Kyler, and I'd say it wasn't up to what Kyler wanted. It wasn't up to what any of us wanted as a season as a whole. And so when you had the kind of year that we had, there's a lot of room for improvement. All options are on the table for us. Okay, we got Kyler, Jacoby, Keaton, all under contract. As it pertains to that position, as it pertains to every position on our team, we're going to look at every avenue to improve.
You heard it right there. All options are on the table. Where could be the best landing spot for Kyler Murray if the Cardinals part ways with him?
Yeah, let's start there. I do think Kyler Murray's days as a Cardinal are going to be done soon. And I know that people are going to say, when you mentioned the Minnesota Vikings, what about Kyler Murray's skill set suggests he is a fit for Kevin O'Connell with some of the quarterbacks he has recently had success with, Kirk Cousins and, of course, Sam Darnold. My answer would be it's not that he's stylistically like those players. It's that I believe in Kevin O'Connell as a quarterback developer, a quarterback whisperer of sorts, and this is not a robust market, right? It's not a good draft for quarterbacks beyond Fernando Mendoza, and there really aren't many free agent quarterbacks that are going to be particularly appealing around the NFL. So a guy like Kyler in a second act might be appealing to Minnesota.
Look, you mentioned Kirk Cousins just a few seconds ago. Kirk Cousins, his future also in question. The Falcons GM addressed it earlier today.
I did talk to Kirk and his representation, Mike McCartney, letting them know that we will release him on the first day of the league year. Just felt that was out of respect for Kirk and Mike, his agent, and what he's done in his career. I owe that to him. We owe that to him to allow him some clarity going into free agency.
All right, so we know Kirk Cousins, he will be released. So which team could benefit from the most from adding a vet like Cousins to their locker room?
I actually thought that Kirk Cousins could stay in Atlanta on a restructured deal for one more season as they wait for Michael Penix Jr. to return. There aren't a lot of obvious options here for Kirk as well. The Cleveland Browns were a team that made sense in the past because of Kevin Stefanski's presence there, and I do wonder if Cleveland will continue to explore options on the quarterback market this offseason. I think they're more likely to kick the tires in the draft. They have a somewhat crowded room right now with Deshaun Watson and two players they drafted last year, and Shedeur Sanders and also Dylan Gabriel. But if Cleveland doesn't feel like one of those are their answers, then Kirk Cousins could perhaps be a fit to go back to Cleveland, where he has been linked to at the very least in the past.
Look, I feel like there's been so many quarterbacks in Cleveland at this point. Maybe they just need to figure out what they have right now.
That's probably true.
Figure out what you have right now and then try to move forward with what you got.
I think the theme, though, this offseason for people that are saying, like, my team's going to land there on quarterback, there aren't a lot of inspiring options this offseason on the market.
A lot of moving pieces this offseason as well. Phil Yates with the latest. Thanks so much, Phil.
Thank you.
Elimination Chamber coming up this weekend. The new mock draft from Mel Kiper. That's coming up now. The biggest mover is safety Caleb Downs from the 10 spot. Latest mock replacing Orville Reese at 2. Mel has no SEC players in his top 10. The last time that happened, 2006, and it's only happened 4 times in the common draft era. As we welcome in our draft analyst, Mel Kiper Jr., fresh off his latest mock. So, Mel, look, we know that the Jets need a lot. Let's just be blunt about it. But why do you think that qualifies for Caleb Downs now at 2 in your latest mock?
Who's going to bring a culture change to the Jets on the defensive side? Who's going to tolerate nothing but winning and the attitude that takes to win and doing all the little things that take? So that's Caleb Downs. So talk to Nick Saban about Caleb Downs and see what he feels and how good he feels he can be at the pro level. Think about the defensive coordinator extension onto the field. That's what this kid is from a football IQ standpoint, Matt. They didn't have an interception last year. The Jets didn't, okay? Aaron Glenn had 41 in his career. He's sitting there watching those sidelines, a team that can't pick off a pass. Caleb Downs, like Kyle Hamilton, what he's meant to the Baltimore Ravens. Safety's now huge in the NFL, the way they move around. So it's got a position that it's too high for. Eric Turner went second overall. It turned out really good. And the other guys that went high, like Eric Berry, Sean Taylor, and others, turned out great as well. So I think it's a really good pick if the Jets look at Caleb Downs with second pick overall over Arvell Reese and David Bailey, which will be a tough call after all said and done.
There's no question, though. Caleb Downs is a frontline star, so anyone who gets him in that top 5 is going to end up with a perennial all-pro each and every year. He was so good at both Alabama and Ohio State. Speaking of the Jets, in your first mock, you actually had Ty Simpson going there, Alabama quarterback at 16, but now you have him coming down to the Steelers at 21. Why the move?
Head coach comes in, McCarthy, and picks his own quarterback, right, Matt? And I think you look at Ty Simpson, obviously you thought the Senior Bowl would be a great venue. He had the injury, wasn't able to participate. Now the Combine will be really important for Ty Simpson. When he was obviously at Alabama, not getting any help from the offensive line, inconsistency at wide receiver, no running game, he was still at 22 touchdown passes and 2 picks into mid-November. Then he had those 5 fumbles lost, had some struggles. Ty Simpson can let it rip. He's got a faster, more athletic version of Mac Jones, who went 15th overall not that long ago. So for me, at 21, you're in a division with Burrow and Lamar. New head coach handpicks his own quarterbacks. In this case, would be 23-year-old Ty Simpson.
I would say, too, only 15 career starts in Alabama, so you're probably going to need him to cook a little bit, maybe in the preseason, and wait behind a veteran to see what he can do eventually, but a talented player nonetheless. And you bring it up. I know Fernando Mendoza, we know that's happening. Ty Simpson, we expect to be the second quarterback overall. Combine this week in Indy. Talk to me about QB3 coming into this draft.
Wide open, Matt. All the names from August, Garrett Nussmeier, right? Cade Klubnik, Cole Payton at North Dakota State, Drew Aller at Penn State. I'm going to go to Taylon Green from Arkansas. Why? Because he's super talented. He's the LTPer. He looks the part. Go back to his days at Boise State as a redshirt freshman. He's read 10 rushing touchdowns. This past year, 777 rushing yards at Arkansas. But he was 59% or lower in 6 games. Yeah, the completion percentage isn't what you need it to be. The inconsistent accuracy, that's something he needs to show. Be accurate with his throws at the Indy Combine, and in conjunction with his athletic and physical ability, I say he's an LTPer. He could be a guy, if he shows that accuracy, that rises up some boards.
Mel, we saw him at the Senior Bowl. Field Yates, Lewis Riddick, Mike Tannenbaum, we were all there, and there was about 3 or 4 times during practice where we kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, this guy looks the part, and he can be special again if you give him time to develop. He is certainly one to watch this draft, as are you in your mock drafts. We'll continue till draft day. Mel Kiper with the latest. Matt. Mel, thank you.